Okay, so now we're in the next section and we're going to show you how to assign class methods. So if you are new to this channel and you would like to follow along with the curriculum, the link is in the description. Okay, let's get into it. Assigning class methods. Just as with objects, we may want to add methods to our classes in addition to properties. So far, we have learned how to set the values of the class properties inside the constructor. When assigning methods in classes, we can either create them outside or inside the constructor. Okay, this is something, let's pay attention to this section right here. We're learning a few things here. We're learning how to assign classes, create the assigning methods in the classes. Like I said, whether we can create them outside or inside the constructor. So this is going to help kind of sum some things up here. Assigning methods outside constructor. When assigning methods outside of the constructor, we simply declare our methods the same way we would normally do for objects, like so. This is going to be beneficial. You need to understand this process right here, because you are in the future going to create constructors and you're going to create methods outside of the constructor. So we're going to go a little bit deeper, but pay attention to the little small nuances to understand the difference here. So here we have the syntax right here. Now here's an example. So we have this class of astronauts, or astronaut class, which is the parent of all the other subclasses, or the children that is going to inherit these particular properties, this object here. And we have the constructor, and in the constructor we pass in 3 parameters: name, age, and mass. And then we're going to use this dot name, which this keyword represents the astronaut, which the dot is the access modifier and the name is the actual property. So this is how we understand that this is the property. And this name over here is value. It's the actual value that we're looking for. So this is not hard coded, this is dynamic. So know the difference. Hard coding is if I put a actual string like my name in this particular value. That's a hard code. I can't adjust that. But name, I can add whatever I want to add to this later on and assign it to this particular property. But then notice here we have a report stats method that we have created on the outside of the constructor. Now notice we're calling it a method here and not saying function. Functions or methods are very similar and almost like the same thing in JavaScript. It means something totally different when we get into Java, because there are no functions in Java. Everything is class-based in Java. In JavaScript, I need you to understand this, that they're syntactic sugar. These classes are just syntactic sugar, meaning they don't technically exist in JavaScript. We're just using it to make it understand the imperativeness, because remember I introduced declarative and imperative to you, because JavaScript is both declarative and imperative. We got to separate it when we get into Java, because Java is just imperative. And here, this is what we're understanding. Imperative is basically breaking it all the way down to the actual steps, understanding the steps. And we've learned this throughout our course about JavaScript, is how we are creating the steps. That's what imperative is. But declarative is just, I just want to say it. I want to do it. This is what it is. So allow me for a second to give you an example here. Think of it like this. You go into the restaurant, and in the restaurant you have the cooks and the chefs in the back preparing the meals. And you are the customer and you have the waiter taking your order. And so here, what we need to understand is that what imperative is that when the cooks and the chefs and the sous chefs are in the kitchen, they're going through the necessary steps to make your meal, meaning they already have a menu that they created and they know the exact steps it takes to make each individual's dish. To you, that's abstract because all you care about is the actual menu on the item on the menu. And so, what imperative is the chefs and the cooks and the sous chef, the prep cooks, and all those are the people that are following the steps to be able to create or make the items that are on the menu. You are receiving the finished product of that. So, if I was in my position or in my context, I want to learn how to make those dishes, I will go to the chef and learn how to make the dish. He would show me or she would show me in every step that's imperative. But the declarative part of it is you. When you order it, you just order what's on the menu, and you may tell the server how you want it cooked, but you are just ordering it whatever is on the menu. You don't know how it's made. You're not doing the necessary steps, or the server's not even doing the necessary steps to actually make it. And they may be able to explain it to you step by step. That's the imperative part. But all you're doing is declaring what you want. That's declarative. Now, eventually I'm gonna quiz you on this, drill you on this in classes. Tell me what the difference is. So here we create another variable, let Fox, and then we want the instance of the astronaut class, and we pass it in the 3 arguments. A string number. Then we console.log fox.report stat. Okay, so Fox now has the astronaut class and it has access to that particular method. How do I know it's a method? Because of open and closing parentheses. It's not a property. And it says here, Fox is 7 years old and has a mass of 12 kilograms. Now, we declared our method report stats outside of the constructor. When we declare a new instance of the astronaut class, we can use the report stats method to return a concise string. Remember, concise string containing all of the info we would need about an astronaut. Now, I'm going to show you in a moment the differences. Assigning method, and what I mean by showing you the difference between declaring this or defining this outside of the constructor versus inside the constructor. Now, assigning methods inside constructor. When declaring methods inside the constructor, we need to make use of this keyword just as we would with our properties. And so, like I said, this is representing the class name, but it's inside the constructor. In order for it to do that, you have to use the this dot method. And so let's consider the astronaut class that we have been working with when assigning the method. Report stats inside the constructor. We do so like this. So now when we do it inside of the constructor, this is how we will write the code. This is how we will declare it inside of the constructor. Remember, we have to give the this dot report in order to have access to it, in order for us to assign it to the particular key. So if I come back up here, we notice something here. I don't need that let. All I did was create what? A variable, and we assigned it what the message, and then inside of it we gave the return stats. It's in the message. All we had to do was access what's inside of the constructor with this. So look at the difference here. By declaring it on the outside, I just needed to get access to what was outside the actual constructor. Inside of it, I have to use the this dot report stat. I have to add the key in order for me to get access to it from outside of the constructor. I didn't have to add the this to the report stat like up here, I didn't have to add it because it's basically a standalone method. It's not inside of the constructor. So I can use this separately, and we'll go over this more about encapsulation, in which encapsulation means data hiding, understanding the difference between private and public, accessibility, visibility. Because this right now is not visible to the outside. It's private, kind of, basically, is what it is. This property is only accessible inside of this constructor. This one, what we call, is going to be able to be seen. It's public. There's something that I hope you watched that video on UMLs to understand what private and public means. It would, like I said, it's going to definitely help you understand how this works. Now, so it says, initially, this may seem to produce the same result as assigning report method by itself outside of the constructor. We will weigh the pros and cons of both methods below. So now let's understand the pros and the cons here. Which way is preferred? This is a question you have to ask yourself when you are going to do either or. It says, try compare the outputs of Fox and Hippo to see the effects of assigning a method inside the constructor versus outside the constructor. So go ahead, open up your class method JS that is inside your JavaScript project. And then I want you to go ahead and run it and see what you get. Take a moment and run this code. Now, me personally, I would like for you to go ahead and set up the whole project from scratch, understanding how to do an npm and then just to get familiar with and see what's inside your JSON folder and what you have created. And then you can compare the two so that make sure you are creating it correctly. But now, once you do that, run it. Run this particular piece of code. And then as you console log Fox and Hippo, what happened? What's different about the two? So you can compare the two and then come back to this video. Take a moment to do that. Now, if you've done that, now we come back. Tell me what is your solution. Talk through the process here. Understand what you've just learned. So here, let me go ahead and read it. In the cases of assigning the methods inside the constructor, each astronaut object carries around the code for report stats. They both have report stats. One is inside the constructor, one is on the outside of the constructor. With today's computers, this is a relatively minor concern. However, each astronaut has extra code that may not be needed. This consumes memory, which you need to consider since today's business want efficient code that does not tax their systems. This is why it's important to understand how to make your code efficient. Because of this, if a method is in the same for all objects of a class, define that method outside of the constructor. Each object does not need a copy of identical code. Therefore, the declaration of a method outside of the constructor will not consume as much memory. So, check your understanding. That's the end of this particular section. But what I do want to do here is kind of explain to you a little bit more and making sure you're understanding when you ran that code to see what the difference is. Now, again, it is up to you to be able to write your code to be efficient, you and the team. Because right now, when you have little small programs, it's not a big deal. It's just when you have millions and millions and possibly billions pieces of data that has to flow through your application, you want it to be more efficient. This is why I was saying that it's important that you go ahead and learn what a UML does. It gives you the roadmap. Remember, a class is the blueprint. And you have to be able to understand what pieces of data you want to keep private and what pieces of data you want to have public. And so here, by defining that method on the outside of the constructor, you're making that public when you need it. But when I go ahead and I instantiate and the actual class, I have access to everything that's inside the class, but I have those properties. Your properties are going to be private. You want those to be private. That's what encapsulation means. It means to do what? Data hiding. You hide that information. That method, you can make that public. You can use that whenever you need it, because you may not need it every time. Remember, methods and functions are similar. It's not where you declare the method, it's when you invoke the method. So the process doesn't see the method until you invoke it. So that's why I want to make sure you see those little small nuances. Okay, so now we made it to the end of this section. Remember, the more you do, the more you improve. See you in the next section.